Hi, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. What would you do if you woke up in a metal box? You had no memory, you remembered your name, but nothing else. You didn't know how you got there, who put you there, what you did an hour ago, and suddenly you look up and there's people looking down at you, and they drag you up out of the box, and you're in a strange environment. You don't know their names, you don't know where you are, you don't even know what day it is. Nothing makes sense, and you have to learn everything all over again. This is what happens to our main character, Thomas, in The Maze Runner by James Dashner. Now, the cover for me isn't great. If I hadn't seen the movie, many years ago, and that made me want to read the book, to be honest, I wouldn't have picked this off the shelf because the cover doesn't really catch me that much. But I did buy the box set quite a few years ago, and I've just finally gotten around to reading the first in the series. So I will be reading the rest in the series. Let's get on with the book. I was hooked immediately in this novel, and that's despite the fact that I've seen the movie before, because I've forgotten a lot about the movie. In fact, I think almost everything about the movie I've forgotten. From when Thomas first comes to in the box, and when he's first dragged up out of the box by the other teenage boys in the glade, as they call it, I was hooked. And you just feel all the confusion that Thomas feels. You feel his fear, you feel, his emotional ups and downs. You feel the other boys' confusion in the glades as well, because they're all confused to a degree, even though some have been there for months or even years. They're all confused to an extent because nobody knows why they're there. All they know is they're in a space called the Glades and they're in a huge maze. Thomas is learning all this, and from the very beginning there are boys in the group who are quite antagonistic towards him, and they keep calling him Greenie, which means a new person or newbie. And he gets sick of that. He doesn't want to be called Greenie or newbie, but some of them keep doing that, much to his angst. What I found interesting about this experience going through this novel is that the author did such a great job in not giving the reader all the details at the start. We only learn things as Thomas learns things, and I found that really clever and really well done. And it would have been a shame if we had have learnt everything at the start. Then what would have been the point of the book then? It's that not knowing, it's that uncertainty that keeps us going in this novel, and that kept me going anyway. On the other hand, the constant not knowing, the constant memory loss, can be used as a lazy plot device, and the author did that sometimes in this novel. I think sometimes he went for the easy way out. So instead of giving us an explanation for something, he just said the characters couldn't remember. They couldn't remember this or that, and that was just the explanation for when the author didn't want to describe something to the reader. And I felt that a bit lazy after it happens a few times. Give us a few more details at least. Don't use that lazy plot device so often. What the main character, Thomas's memory loss, does is it injects that intrigue into the novel as well. So he's trying to find out about himself, and he remembers little bits, or he thinks he does, kind of vague shadows in his memory. But he doesn't give those away to the other boys in the group, because he thinks if he does, they will think he's a spy, or they will think he's evil or hold it against him. That adds a lot of intrigue, because what does Thomas remember from the past? Who was he? He thinks that he may have done something in the past, and we get hints of that because there are creatures in the maze called grievers, and if they attack one of the boys in the glade, they inject something into them, like a toxin. The only way to get cured from that is to get an injection, a serum. If you wait too long, you die supposedly. But even if you get that serum, you go through what they call the change. And in that process, you start getting some of your memories back, like flashbacks. And they're so powerful and so vivid, they can drive people insane temporarily. Then they start to fade away after a time, but you still remember them for quite a few days, it seems, in the novel. What we find is some of those boys had gone through the change before Thomas arrived. I won't go into too much detail, but you get hints that those boys remember something about Thomas from their lives before the maze, and something Thomas did that they're not happy with. So that also adds a lot of intrigue and suspense. Who was Thomas beforehand? What did he do? So you've got multiple different kind of threads of suspense and intrigue in this novel. What is the maze for? What are the grievers? Why does the maze keep changing? How do you get out of the maze? What did Thomas do before coming to the maze? That just kept me reading because I wanted to learn everything about where they were, about their world, because this maze is their world. The biggest change in this novel is the arrival of Teresa. Now she becomes the only girl in the group, and her arrival is very close to when Thomas arrived, which doesn't happen usually. I think they usually get a new boy arriving once a month, from what they said in the novel. But the arrival of the girl creates a huge lot of confusion, but also a huge lot of suspicion amongst the group, because they start to wonder, is Thomas driving these changes because the girl is so out of the ordinary? And then the girl triggers some big event in this novel, and that's where I'll leave the plot, because the big event that Teresa triggers is one of the biggest things in this novel, and then drives a lot of change and so many events after that. A great plot. I felt this book was very well plotted, and I'm so looking forward to reading the next books in this series. Let's start by discussing Thomas. He's the character who we experience his point of view the most. I thought the author did a great job in crafting this character. We really sense everything that he feels and sees. Well, I did anyway. I really sensed his confusion and his fear, his sadness as well at being left in this world without remembering what's going on. Everything he felt was really vivid and really well written. I thought this was a really great character, and I think the author should be congratulated for giving us this character and presenting the character in such a clever way. One of the other characters that we get introduced to quite early on in this novel is Chuck. And I really like Chuck. Chuck kind of latches on to Thomas and becomes his best friend. And he almost feels like, the puppy dog that follows Thomas around a bit. Chuck is the youngest in the group, I think. And he's a really good character. He's quite clever. He's quite loyal. But he's also got a cheeky side as well that comes out every now and then. And I did like that in this novel, and injected a bit of lightness into the group that we needed, because it's quite a dark novel, I found, and I wasn't expecting such a dark novel from a young adult read, but it is quite dark. Chuck did really stand out for me, and I think the author again did such a great job in giving us a character that was very complex, had a lot of emotions, and well-rounded. So the characters in this novel, for the most part, are really well written. We do have a few characters in this novel that are almost villains. One of them is Gally. And the reason I say Gally is a villain is because he's one of the boys in the group that doesn't like Thomas. From the very start, he's very antagonistic towards him. And the reason for that is that Gally went through that change process, being attacked and injected by a griever. And he remembers something about Thomas from the past. He's not sure totally what that is, but he does remember something. And it's something he thinks Thomas did that wasn't good for the rest of the group. That was where, all that intrigue came from. But it gave Gally a whole different outlook in this novel for the reader, for me. Because even though he's the villain, he's not evil per se. He thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks he's remembering something that happened, and he's trying to protect the group from Thomas, who he thinks is the evil one. So we've got a person who is presented as a villain, but he believes he's doing the right thing, and I found that quite intriguing, and it was also very well written, because you do get the sense that he thinks he's doing the right thing, and that he gets frustrated all the time that no one believes him, and that came through so strongly. So again, very strong character. The last character I'll mention is Newt, and I really liked Newt because he was again written so cleverly. He's meant to be a leader of the group, but he's a bit of a flawed leader. he seems out of his depth, and you get that feeling all the time. I mean, it's very plainly written that he's out of his depth, but you also feel it, and you also feel his frustration and confusion with some of the things that are going on, and also at times his fear, especially when it gets to areas where they talk about leaving the maze. He's afraid of that because he was attacked in the maze by a griever, so he was injured in the maze. So that character was very complex, very well written, a very strong character, and I thought, again, the author did a really good job in giving us this cast of characters that were so lifelike and so believable. And that is probably very hard to do. You know, we've got a novel that's basically about teenage boys in a group trying to survive. It could have gone, you know, in all different directions. It could have been a train wreck, really. But the novel is so well written and the characters are so well written that I just get the sense the author really had a grasp of everything going on in this plot, and he could really relate to those teenage characters a lot. And that was a really good job, I think, and just those characters make you want to keep reading. I really enjoyed this novel, and that surprised me, because I don't know what to expect from young adult novels. I'm trying to read more of them now, because I'm understanding that some of them are quite gripping and even quite dark in a way. I had this box set on my shelf for quite a long time, the 4 books in the set, and I was hesitant to read them, but now I'm glad I did, because the first novel, The Maze Runner, just makes me want to read the rest in the series. I rate this a 4 out of 5 stars. It's an almost perfect novel. There are some little lazy bits that the author threw in, you know, that memory loss kind of thing going on too many times, but for the main part, this novel was quite brilliant, and even the ending was quite good as well. There's a hook at the end that's really well done and makes you want to read the next in the series. As I read each book in this series, I will of course place a review on my channel, along with other young adult novels that I read. If you don't want to miss out on them, check out my channel and subscribe.